Hello, man. We Pastor Winfrey here. Listen, I'm excited that this Sunday we get to begin our series on the book of Hebrews. As you know, during the fall and beginning of and parts of winter, we usually go through a particular book of the Bible. We started this a few years ago. We went through Romans, and then from Romans we went through Nehemiah. Then from Nehemiah we went last year to the book of Acts, and now this year we are in the book of Hebrews. And so I want to take a few minutes just to give some background information as we prepare for this sermon series, this sermon teaching series, that we can walk through this together. So y'all ready? Here we go. All right. So can you imagine a time of immense pressure, of immense persecution, a time when your faith could cost you everything? Well, this is the world in which the book of Hebrews is written. The recipients of this letter were Jewish Christians that were likely living in Rome, facing escalating persecution by the Emperor Nero. They were being tempted because of this persecution to revert back to Judaism, a religion that in the Roman authority was tolerated, unlike Christianity, which was causing what we would call good trouble in Rome. So for them, for the Jewish Christians who were receiving this letter, this was not about them just living comfortably. This was for them a matter of their survival. They were tired. They were being disenfranchised. They were even, some were perhaps doubting whether or not that Christ was supreme, that the supremacy of Christ in the face of such suffering. They had known, you have to think about this, they had known the grandeur of the temple. They had experienced the established traditions. They had even were experiencing around them the safety that came with being a part of Judaism. But now that they had began to embrace Christianity, they were embracing a faith that did not offer the security from persecution in Rome. The only thing they had was a promise of a future kingdom. And so while the author of Hebrews remains anonymous, we can clearly see the purpose of the book of Hebrews. The purpose was to encourage these to encourage these wavering believers to stand strong, to endure in the face of persecution. The author's primary message can be summarized in one word: better. For the author is declaring that Jesus is better. That Jesus is better than the angels, that Jesus is better than Moses, that Jesus is better than the Levitical order, the Levitical priesthood. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross is better than the sacrificial system of the old covenant. So the author is essentially saying to this audience, why would you go back to something that is good when you have someone who is better? I'm going to say that again, that'll preach. Why would you go back to something that was good when you have something that is better? Why return to a copy when you have the original? And in this book, the author meticulously argues that the old covenant with its rituals, with its laws, was merely a foreshadowing. It was preparation for the ultimate revelation from God in Christ Jesus. The author reminds them in this book that Jesus, our great high priest, who offered himself once for all, who provided a perfect and complete atonement for sin and is better. And in doing so, reveals another core theme, the theme for us for this series. Jesus is our gift from God. This perfect high priest, this perfect sacrifice is not something that we've earned. It's not something we can create, but Jesus is the ultimate expression of God's grace, freely given to us, a gift that provides a new and a better covenant established on these better promises. Jesus is better. Later on in the book of Hebrews, the author provides for us a powerful call to faith, which we famously call the Hall of Faith. When it starts off by saying, now faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence or the conviction of things not seen. The author parades before us a cloud of witnesses from Abraham to Moses to David, who through their many trials still remained faithful. So the author does something here also too that I love, that the author doesn't just speak to us intellectually, but in a deeply pastoral way, telling us, don't give up. Look to Jesus, who is the author and finisher, who is the author and perfecter of our faith, calling them to persevere, to hold fast to the faith, hold fast to the confession, hold fast in an unwavering way to receive this gift that God has given us as a reminder that not only is God faithful, but that God is faithful to God's promises to God's people. The book of Hebrews has always been held in high esteem in the Christian tradition, even though its authorship has been widely debated. What hasn't been debated is its deeply theological significance in our faith and to our tradition. Clement of Rome, who is a first century writer and theologian, quotes the book of Hebrews quite extensively. Augustine of Hippo, a father of the church, one of our church fathers, recognizes Hebrews' unique power and ability to reveal Christ and makes this statement: whoever understands Hebrews understands all the scriptures. This highlights the book's ability to synthesize Old Testament themes with the New Covenant. One well-known sentiment captures its essence like this, by saying, the Old Testament is the New Testament concealed. The New Testament is the Old Testament revealed. And Hebrews stands as a powerful bridge between the two. The letter to Hebrews isn't just a historical document. It is a living word for us today. When we face trials, when our faith is tested, the author of Hebrews also calls us to remember that Jesus is better and that Jesus is our gift from God, urging us to fix our eyes on Jesus, to endure, to live out our faith in an unwavering conviction. So it's my hope that as we journey through this book together as a family, that we would be encouraged to, in the face of modern persecution or trials or attacks, that we would look towards Jesus, that we would hold on to the promises of God, that we would remember that Jesus is better and that Jesus is our gift from God, as a reminder to hold on to God's promises and to remember that God never breaks his promises to his people. Jesus is better. And as we come to this understanding, it is also my hope that our worship will flow from that from that love, from that conviction, that as we face attacks, as we face things that would test our faith, as we face things like building things and external issues and conflicts, that we will remember to keep our eyes on Jesus, who is better, who is our gift. Look forward to it. I hope you guys are ready for this book as we journey together. Let's have some fun.